Hi everyone, good afternoon and welcome to the 333 Premier webinar of HDFC Securities. I'm Payal Pandya from the Investment Advisory team. Today we are going to discuss microfinance, the way ahead. And to discuss this with us, we have Darpin Shah, who has a very rich experience in this sector for more than a decade and a half. Hi Darpin, welcome.
Hi, Payal.
So Darpin, when it comes to microfinance, we all know that it's the smallest ticket lending. Okay, and microfinance in the first quarter, especially after this lockdown, has seen a 96% decline in the disbursements, which is like massive. And thereafter, of course, in the second quarter, once the unlock activity started happening, uh, the businesses have started, improving a little. Collection efficiencies have started coming back, and Bandhan, when it reported its, primary numbers, they have what an advances growth of some 20% and a deposit growth of 34%. So how do you see this sector going ahead? Because this sector actually has faced a lot of crises in the past as well. This is the third larger one, I would say. The first being the 2010 AP crisis, and then demonetization. Because even now, after demonetization, about two-thirds of the sector works in cash. So, how do you see this going ahead?
So you are right in the first point that disbursements have completely slowed down in 1Q, but that was not only the case with microfinance; it was across lenders,
Hmm.
especially the NBFCs, which have a very high touch-based model, meeting customers regularly and then distributing money. Those kind of all businesses had seen a sharp fall. For that matter, not only microfinance, but if you look at CV financiers, they had also
Hmm.
seen a sharp drop in their disbursal number. Second bit on asset quality or the challenges which you talked about in 2010, 2016, 17 in Demon and now. Yes, the sector is largely a riskier one because it is completely unsecured lending, a small ticket unsecured lending to the bottom of the pyramid borrowers or customers, you can say. So it is on a riskier side. But if you see over a period of last 10, 12 years, they have evolved in a much better way. So, right from
Hmm.
2010 when the AP crisis happened, that time the regulations were not that stringent. And now in 2020, the things have become, or the regulations have become very stringent. Microfinanciers do follow that, and that's why if you see the impact which we had in 2010 was relatively lower in 2016-17 during demon, and what we expect now is in 2020 or 21 when the complete pain will be visible, it will be much lower than what we anticipated in the month of April or May because of the lockdowns which we had seen. So yes, it remains a riskier sector, but it will be one of the first ones to pick up both in terms of disbursements and to see improvement in asset quality. The thing you mentioned about Bandhan, yes, so they have started seeing some kind of traction from 2Q onwards. The disbursements growth has started picking up. They've already registered a 3% sequential growth in loans. Deposit growth was also healthy. Same will be the case for many of the MFI lenders, whether it is Credit Access or Ujjivan Small Financial Services, which we have covered. So there we'll see some kind of an uptick in the disbursements as the lockdown has opened for the sector.
Okay. So that's it. Even in case of, like you mentioned, that the ticket sizes have improved over the last few years, and the asset quality also, the companies are now in a better position to manage through these crisis situations. So even now, like we have seen that the minimum ticket size, which was say about 17 to 20,000 pre-COVID, declined sharply in between, and then has started coming up and is about say 13,000 in September, if I'm not wrong, the minimum ticket that is. But for someone like Bandhan, for example, their average uh, loan per account is pretty high at 42,000, while industry average is somewhere around 39,000. So do you think this is in a way, that Bandhan is having a larger risk per account, and especially when in the current times that we are expecting the NPAs also to almost increase 3 times compared to March 20 and our expectations of March 21, where we are expecting gross NPAs in excess of 4% for most of all. So
Okay.
how do we see that turning out? Is this going to all this despite, of course, the fact that accounts under moratorium, which had been almost 100% for all the companies in MFI especially, they have really come down. Like for Bandhan and Credit Access Grameen, of course, they are like sub 30% kind of a number. So how do you see this going on?
Okay, so first point on ticket sizes. So ticket sizes for Bandhan have been higher throughout, and there is a specific reason for it. Bandhan, if you see, has been long in existence. Their presence in in West Bengal has been, more than a decade or 2 decades old. The customer vintage is on a much higher side. We have anecdotally seen on ground customers borrowing from Bandhan for last 10, 12, 15 years. Okay, so once you have that kind of a history built up, giving a loan of 70, 80,000 or even a lakh rupee is not a material thing according to us. Uh,
Hmm.
Average ticket size is roughly around 42,000 for Bandhan approximately. So that seems to be on the higher side. But what our rationale is that they have been able to have a much loyal and a vintage customer base, which derives the comfort of giving a higher ticket size compared to an industry or some of the comparable peers which are at 25 or 30,000 odd rupees per ticket size. So yeah, risk is there because it is unsecured businesses, but the vintage provides some comfort on that segment or that part. Moving on to your question
Okay.
on 2x or 3x rise on asset quality from what it is currently. So as I mentioned earlier, this being a riskier segment, completely unsecured, and the way lockdowns have happened, income generation has been, impacted significantly for the lower end of the borrowers, and that makes us believe that GNPAs will be elevated in the near term for all the microfinance lenders, whether it is Bandhan or Credit Access or Ujjivan. So if you look at our numbers, we have already factored in 2x, 3x rise in GNPAs.
Hmm.
If you ask me why we are not worried, even if the GNPAs are increasing, and why we are recommending a buy on Bandhan, the reason is what Bandhan and Credit Access in last 2 quarters have done is they have taken the hit directly on PNL and build a large COVID-related provisioning. So if you look at for Bandhan, for example, they have already created 3% as provisions on their micro loan book and
Hmm.
2% on the overall loan book. So what I'm trying to say is when actually the NPAs will hit Bandhan, they will already be well cushioned in terms of provisioning, and it will not materially impact the PNL PNL for Bandhan. Similarly, for Credit Access, if you look, Credit Access in last 2 quarters has made provisioning of 2.4% on their loans, which is a very big number. So that gives a
Hmm.
big comfort. And to add to it, uh, after we had released this report, Credit Access and Bandhan both have given their collection efficiency numbers for the month of September. So they are almost touching 90-92%, which is
Hmm.
a positive surprise for us and makes us believe that the assumptions of 3x or 4x GNP increase, which we had factored in, looks unlikely. That number will be on a lower side. So that will be a positive surprise for us and the state.
Okay. Which of course is a great thing. But Darpin, if we really observe the past trends, when these MFIs have, you know, sailed through the crisis, no doubt, but in more cases than one, I would say, these slippages that they see during this crisis, okay, even if the repayments begin, they the portion which remains unpaid, eventually a larger part of it is written off. So do we expect a similar kind of trend even now that whatever has maybe the collection efficiency has now started going towards 90, and probably by end March it will be in the top 90s, because we still have half a year to go there. But should we assume that, like the past crisis, the amount which is not paid will remain unpaid and eventually might be written off? So while we may not see further slippages, but this money may not rather come back to the PNL.
You are absolutely right on this. This being unsecured segment, the loss given defaults or the write-offs which you're talking about, the loss given defaults will be on a significantly higher side, because once the borrower stops paying, you don't have any collateral to collect that money. So yes, of course, the LGDs and write-offs will be higher according to us, and that's what we are factoring in our numbers as well. Across cycles, if you see previously also during demon or during AP crisis, this had happened, and we believe this will continue. But to add to it, the provisioning which they have created and the fat margins which these co-lenders, these micro lenders make, are sufficient enough to provide them the cushion of taking higher write-offs in times to come.
Correct. But of course, we do expect that the write-offs will remain, as the trend also suggests. So coming to margins, Darpin, I think it's only the larger NBFC MFIs who are, in a comfortable position to borrow money, and they are getting money at a better rate from banks and all. But banks have been very risk averse in the recent past, and they have not lent enough to the smaller NBFC MFIs, where of course NABARD came into the picture, and they are now giving enough funding for the smaller players too. How do you see the margins spanning? Because is this kind of discrimination likely to remain even in future, that the larger ones will continue to get the benefit while the smaller ones may not? And there are times when the smaller ones also have been performing well. It's not that the larger NBFC MFIs are going to have any less risky kind of a business. So what is the logic behind them getting an upper hand?
Okay, so two bits in this. First is on funding, and second is on margins for this MFIs. So first on the funding bit, what has happened is 2 years back, the DHFL or the Diwan housing episode had happened, and just prior to that, it was Island FS. Since then, banks had become more risk averse in lending to certain segments of NBFCs. Okay. What we have noticed is, given the balance sheet strength, the capital adequacy, the underwriting practices which various NBFCs follows, large NBFCs were well placed. Thus, they were continuously getting a free flow from banks in terms of funding. Whereas smaller NBFCs, whether it is NBFC in an asset financier or an MFI, they were facing challenges in getting money. We believe that should continue, and larger NBFCs or MFIs will continue to have a much higher share, and there will be a polarization. Okay. Now moving to NBFC MFIs. If you look at the mid-tier segment kind of a Credit Access Grameen, last 2 years after this Diwan episode, they have not faced any issues in terms of gathering money from banks or even from markets. So which gives the comfort on their underwriting practices, their corporate governance, and the management quality. So what we are trying to highlight here is, not all small NBFCs will be facing problem. If you have a quality portfolio, if the management practices are good enough, if there is a corporate governance, you will see a flow from banks and bond markets towards your borrowings, and that should help you to grow your balance sheet. That is first bit on funding for various NBFCs. Moving on to the margin bit. So what has happened is, after the AP crisis, and to regulate the sector much properly, RBI has capped the spreads at 10% for large MFIs. The spreads is the difference between yields you charge and the cost of funds which you have. RBI has kept it at 10%. So this 10% cap is, we believe that it is good enough for micro lenders to go on with a slightly higher operational cost which they require to bear, and also to bear in the higher write-offs which we just spoke about,
Hmm.
given in the unsecured businesses. So this 10% is good enough for capturing say 2-3% or 3% plus kind of a operational cost, and uh, a periodic or a cyclical 2-3% write-offs. So that is good enough for them to capture these two, and thus continuously make much higher return ratios of 2.5, 3%, and in better times it can be as high as 4% as well.
Correct. So, Darpan, in this case, do you think this is to some extent, more tilted in terms of bias towards the non-large NBFC MFIs? Because then there are a few banks also who are doing microfinance, and then there are NBFCs who have a small portion of microfinance, wherein the margin is not capped and they will be able to charge any amount. And if they are able to get enough funding because of their banking background, or some NBFCs which would have a bank partner, and their margins are likely to be better than those registered as NBFC MFIs per se. Is that a possibility?
Yes, so you are right that banks will always have an upper edge because they are not regulated by RBI in terms of capping the spreads at 10%, and
Hmm.
their advantage, they can raise low cost deposits, that is the saving accounts and current accounts, which are at a much lower cost. This yes, thus they will have an upper hand in terms of making higher margins compared to some of the NBFC MFIs. But not to forget that banks have a much diversified portfolio. They will be into corporate, other retail segments, SME, and microfinance will generally be a very small portion for their portfolio. So whether you look at the
Hmm.
top 2-3 private sector banks, the portfolios will be less than 1 to 2% of their total portfolios. So I don't think so that will be a material dampener for NBFC MFIs. Moving on to the mid-tier private sector banks, there are a couple of them where microfinance portfolio is again 10-12% of their total loan book. So there they
Hmm.
can get benefit out of this cost of funds. But I don't. But again, they will have a benefit, but it will not materially impact the way NBFC MFIs are functioning or the way things are happening for them.
So only focusing on you know pure play micro lenders. I think there also we have NBFC MFIs and SFBs who also lend to smaller, are lending smaller tickets. Now, in this case, how does uh, an NBFC MFI have an upper hand over SFBs, or do SFBs have an upper hand because they are deposit taking and they don't have the burden of borrowings? Or how do we see these two in a different light?
Okay, it is like converting into SFB is win some lose some actually, if you ask me. So once you convert
Hmm.
it into an SFB, uh, you lose your tag of an NBFC MFI. Then to garner deposits, you need to set up more sophisticated, more proper branches. You need to be on a main street rather than a street inside where NBFC MFI are okay with it. You can be on first floor, second floor as an NBFC MFI to as an office, and you can have collections easily doing from there. But being an NBFC SFB or a bank, you need to be on ground floor where customers can walk in frequently for deposit, for withdrawals, or all the services which you provide. And also, it is win some, lose some for SFBs. Once you become an SFB, you need to incur a lot of cost, the benefit of which will flow over a period of time. You will have an advantage of cost of funds, but again, it will be not easy for all SFBs to collect money at a rapid pace as large private sector banks do or large PSU banks do. So it will be a time consuming effort both in terms of building deposits, building into a new avatar where you can do a lot of other lending also. So it is advantageous for an NBFC to for an SFB to get low cost deposits, but it comes with a pain as well where you need to incur various cost of funds, various cost for building up the liability franchise.
Hmm. In all of this, we also, I just happened to notice that in your report itself that the larger MFIs, NBFC MFIs, occupy almost like plus 80% of the market share of this micro lending, and the smaller ones of course have about 10 odd percent share. So, but the smaller ones of course are large in numbers. Do you think eventually this is all going to end up merging like Bandhan Apna Bharat Financial did with IndusInd, because there are several banks who have smaller portions in MFIs. If MFIs are beneficial and if the smaller ones are, not very significant in the market, and there are so many positives to the MFI business despite the risk. Do you think there is scope for mergers in this aspect? Because we have seen so
Absolutely.
many in the past.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. So there are chances of M&A or a corporate action in many of these smaller NBFC MFI. We have seen one with already Credit Access Grameen, the stock under our coverage.
Hmm.
They have acquired Madura Microfinance based out of Tamil Nadu. We have seen IndusInd Bank acquiring erstwhile Bharat Financials or SKS Microfinance. So these things will happen. That's what we believe. uh, Being a lucrative business where you make fat margins and superior return ratios over a period, definitely the number of NBFC MFI has increased significantly over a period of time. Uh, but it is equally difficult to sustain or build a large institution, because the collection efficiencies, the credit cost or the losses which they have to bear is also equally on a higher side. So there are many NBFCs which have entered, but we believe over a period there again will be polarization where top 5 6 companies will be doing much better and the remaining ones will be a French player, or they might be acquired by the banks or the large NBFC MFIs.
In this case, also, Daphne, I was reading somewhere that overall in the micro lending space, where you would include all the banks collectively as well as the NBFC, MFIs, and other NBFCs and institutions, banks per se have a share of about 40.7% in the micro lending space, while NBFC MFIs in particular have only about 31%. Do you think this kind of will reverse in future? Is it, or will it literally continue to a level where all the NBFC MFIs would at some point in time get into consolidation along with other banks seeing, or rather expecting consolidation in the sector? Or will we have a set of few large banks doing banking pure play business and few large NBFC MFIs doing their own thing?
See, what has happened is this 40% plus which you are talking about, that has to
Hmm.
more to do with first is Bandhan converting itself into a bank 4 5 years back.
Okay.
Second is SKS Microfinance or erstwhile Bharat Financials being acquired by
Hmm.
IndusInd Bank. So that portfolio completely moves to the banking side. So that's why they have. It seems
Correct.
that they have gained market share. NBFC MFI have been steady, and we believe that they will continue to be part of this sweet spot of NBFC MFI of the microfinance business, and they will continue to grow. The ones which have lost market share actually are the small finance banks. So
Hmm.
as I mentioned earlier, once you convert into a bank, you try to diversify your portfolio away from microfinance as well. So we have seen this in case of Equitas. We have seen this in the case of Ujjivan Small Finance Bank. That from being a predominant 100% microfinance lender, you have gradually moved towards segments like housing, MSME, two-wheelers, commercial vehicles. So these are all the segments where you have started lending. Okay, so we believe that large banks which are there, they'll continue to be operative in this segment. NBFC, MFI, the top 3 4 names again will be a major player, and the SFBs which have lost market share might continue to do that, but it will be a choice which they have decided to have because they would like to diversify their portfolio.
Okay. So between all of this, Bandhan, of course, is converted into a bank, but it is one of the largest in the micro lending space as well. But somehow, I don't know, this could be laymanish, but there are some disconnects. Okay, when I think about Bandhan individually, now it has the
Payal, sorry,
highest
can you
customer
speak a bit
base.
loud? Sorry, I'm not able to hear you. Can you speak a bit louder?
Am I audible better?
Yeah.
So, Darpin, when I think about Bandhan on a standalone basis, as in without really getting too much into either whether it is a bank or a NBFC MFI, uh, maybe it is a little laymanish, but there is some disconnect. Bandhan has the highest customer base, right? When it comes to micro lending, they have the highest kind of market share. Their ticket size is that higher than the industry average, but
Correct.
they also have the highest of all NPAs in micro lending. And it's not just now that we are expecting in FY21, but even in our future projections when we go to like FY22 and 23, when overall all the NPAs are expected to decline, that of Bandhan are still expected in plus 3% categories. And between all of this, they have the lowest lending rates compared to any other, which is somewhere close to 17%, along with a robust growth that we have seen in the first quarter. So I don't know how all of this adds up and how we should look at it. While it has very good growth, very good customer base, plus on the flip side, the highest of all NPAs, and how would Bandhan then deal with it?
Okay, so just to put things in perspective, the reported number still 1Q. Bandhan's NPA is almost 1.6, 1.65,
Hmm.
and similar. So is the case for Credit Access Grameen also, not material difference.
Hmm.
In our projections, Bandhan, we have factored in much higher NPAs for Bandhan. The reason is one of the reasons which you already pointed, higher ticket sizes. That is one of the reasons we have factored in much higher NPAs for Bandhan compared to a Credit Access or an Ujjivan Small Finance Bank. So while we agree that it has a vintage, the customer loyalty is on a much higher side. COVID has led to a biggest risk for this because the income generation has been completely impacted for this the borrowers which Bandhan has or even for Credit Access has. And
Hmm.
then having a higher ticket size is making us believe that it warrants a higher GNPA proportion compared to other NBFC MFIs.
Okay. And also for some basic understanding, even now, I think each borrower in the micro lending space is allowed to have two loans, correct, from two different institutions. So now, in that case, if suppose uh, a lot of these borrowers obviously are, daily wagers or farmers whose incomes are pretty seasonal and things like that. And plus, now with COVID, several of them have faced a large impact on their incomes, especially those who were, doing a small job somewhere or had a shop or something like that. Now, in this, if the borrower has two loans, one from an NBFC MFI, which is charging a higher rate, and one from another bank or NBFC, or more chances of another NBFC who will be charging a comparatively lesser rate, like Bandhan, for example. Are we seeing any trends where these might pay off to one and not pay off to another because they will not be able to service this? As also was seen during demonetization, a lot of things happened when because dealings were with cash and they paid off one, did not pay off another. So then how do we deal with this? Because in case of a normal corporate, account or something, if they default towards one entity, I think everybody would have to provide for it. So how does it work with NBFC, MFIs, and do we see one NBFC MFI marking that account as an NPA and the other might have it as a standard and continue to deal with it accordingly?
Yeah, so you are right that this problem might occur where a borrower chooses to pay one of the lenders and not the other, irrespective of rates. But that will be more to do with the loyalty which it has towards a particular lender.
Hmm.
So anecdotally, we have seen this already happening on ground. In our channel checks, we have seen borrowers paying a particular lender and defaulting on others. We have seen this happen at various places, and I guess even this time it will continue to happen. So that will be the clear case. During demo, and just to clarify that borrowers paid a particular bank because banks were supposed to accept the currency which was being demonetized, but
Hmm.
NBFCs were not supposed to collect that notes. Okay, so
Correct.
that was the difference in demonetization, where banks, just because they were able to collect those kind of notes, they were placed better compared to NBFC MFI. This time the trend will be different. It can be that an NBFC is at an advantage compared to a bank. But yes, as you rightly said, it is possible a borrower might choose to be more loyal to one of the lenders compared to the other.
Okay. So on a broader level, Darpin, in all these past crises, okay, rather these past crises have taught this sector to be more cautious, more try to go more digital with Jandhan accounts, with a lot of micro lending happening digitally. You know, like Bharat Financial also had come up with opening accounts and doing processing through the tab and things like that. We again noticed that at least two-thirds of the sector is still running on cash. So, do you think that this actually, will see the light of digital transformation and someday start reducing risk therein? Or because while I was reading some reports on what happened with collections during the first quarter this time due to lockdown, because a lot of things were cash driven, the agents could not go for the JLG meetings and nothing that because of the lack of personal touch, a lot of collections did not happen. Wherein what was happening digitally to some extent that worked for a few companies, I would say. Do you think there is likely that a cultural shift will happen in this aspect? And if it has not happened even after learning the lessons from demonetization, what could be the reason there?
See, we have to understand that this is a very high touch business model of microfinance lending. So, just to give perspective, a branch manager or the salesperson of a particular NBFC, MFI, or a bank every week will be meeting his customers, or at least a fortnightly will be meeting his customers. Okay, this being an unsecured business, you have to be in touch with your borrowers to see how they are functioning on ground, to know about them, what is happening with them. No, so this is very a touch-based business model, and that process will continue. Post demonetization, what has happened is at least the disbursements which were happening earlier in cash have now started happening through bank accounts. So that part of
Hmm.
digitization is already being covered. In terms of collections, as I mentioned earlier, these borrowers being at the lowest end of the pyramid, they will not be well equipped with digital stuff. They will take their own sweet time to convert themselves into the digital mode. For an example, if you see for Ujjivan's collections almost improved to 37% digitally. So the progress has happened. It is slow, and we believe it will take some own sweet time to get this digitization process complete, at least in terms of collections. Disbursements have happened. Collections will take some
Hmm.
more time. Even recently, the RBI had published in one of its documents that they have mentioned that one third is still only on digitization, digital way of collections.
Hmm.
Another
Correct.
60, another two-thirds is still pending. So it will take its own sweet time for this kind of collections to move digitally, but definitely it will happen. Despite this, it will be a high touch business model. That's what we believe.
Okay. That sounds good, Darpin. In just to get a perspective.
Sorry, Payal, I'm not able to hear you. Sorry, Payal, I'm not able to hear you at all.
Payal, you need to unmute yourself.
Am I audible now?
You're audible now.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, you are.
Sorry, something went wrong. So Darpin, now we have a coverage on Bandhan, Ujjivan SFB, and Credit Access Grameen, right? How would you
Yes.
place all of these in terms of who is in a better position to play the market from what time perspective and things like that? And of
Okay,
course,
the
if
first
anything
thing,
else you want to add towards it.
yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, this is one of the sector or the segment which is very risky given the unsecured business lending. So that risk an investor should keep it in mind. Our pecking order is we like Bandhan in the banking space and Credit Access Grameen in the NBFC MFI space. These two will be our preferred topics in the sector. To add to it, if any of the investor or is willing to look at a corporate action to be played, they can prefer Ujjivan Financial Services, which is the holding company of Ujjivan Small Finance Bank. Now, it is trading at a 43-44% discount to its actual or the fair value, which it owns in the Ujjivan Small Finance Bank. So that can be a corporate action which can help the investors to make money depending on the corporate action, which can happen in next 1.5 years.
Okay. Perfect. I think that sums up the whole sector, Darpin. Do you think there is anything else we need to really look into when we think about micro lending, and of course how we see the overall sector and its future from here on?
Okay. See, so I've been time and again repeating about the riskier part of micro lending, but I'd like to highlight that this is the sector which offers a huge growth potential over the next 3 to 5 years period, which will be higher than the overall banking credit growth, and for that matter, compared to the retail loan growth which the entire banking sector might report. So it offers a high growth. Second part is again, as I mentioned earlier, these micro lenders generate much higher spreads compared to the average banking industry does, which will help them to protect their return ratios and PPOP margin over a period, even existing for the asset quality issues which might happen sporadically. Uh, that is point number two. And point number three is the way on ground collection efficiency has improved, the way these lenders over the past 2 quarters have created provisioning gives us a lot of comfort that the sector will come out of the pain much sooner than what we anticipated earlier. And Bandhan and Credit can give a much superior return over the next 18 to 24 months. This is with a caveat that there are no further lockdowns or local lockdowns which happen because of the virus or the infection which is going on.
Correct, Darpin. So then, is it fair to assume that in the 1 or 2 years to come, in the lending space per se, the micro lending subsector would perform much better than the other banks, despite their risk factors because of their high spreads and high collection efficiency and robust growth. Is that a fair assumption?
Yes.
Okay. thanks a lot, Darpin. I think this was quite interesting to know about one segment of the lending space, which is more spoken about because of the stress that it has. It was
Absolutely.
very insightful. Thanks a lot. And thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you, Payal. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks. Happy investing. Have a